I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The 2018 general election is behind us, and it's given something for everybody to talk about. Both within Montgomery County, where we had a contested race for county executive, and statewide, where we have a red governor in our blue state. Fred Evans, who comments for this program on a regular basis, has this story and so much more. The holidays are almost upon us, and while many celebrate, others are already responding with increased stress and, unfortunately, a feeling of looming loneliness. EveryMind, our wonderful organization in Montgomery County, has programs to help people deal with these difficulties. Amy Fier, Director of Adult and Community Services at EveryMind, will tell us all about the program she directs and how EveryMind is fighting these problems. The November Beacon, again, a great publication in our county's lead story, is about marijuana use in Maryland and what passing medical marijuana laws has meant for residents of our state. Stuart Rosenthal, the editor and publisher of the Beacon, is here to report on this story as well as tell us about others that are in this current edition. Increasing numbers of companies are hiring senior citizens now more than ever, perhaps in the state in the past, because of the low unemployment rate, we think. Henry Hailstock, commentator for Montgomery Week in Review, has the details on this and let us know if it is a new or a long-time phenomenon. Fred, welcome.
Thank you.
The election is just past us. We voted up and down. It's the non-presidential. It's the
right.
sort of the off year. We had governor, county executive, all of the local seats. Any surprises?
I don't think there were any surprises. Obviously, I'll start with county executive. That was an interesting one. Mark Elrich is the winner. I think 64% of the
overwhelming winner, wasn't it?
Overwhelming, 64% of the vote. Nancy Florine, who stepped in at the last minute as a quote independent
Democrat,
lifelong
county
Democrat,
council
member, mayor of
Garrett Park.
I think about 24%, and then.
Actually, I think less. I think less than 20%, if I remember right. Yeah, because I think right.
And so that was an interesting race, I think. And then, of course, Robin Ficker, who was the Republican candidate, and there was speculation that if they split the Democratic vote, that he would then become county executive. And everyone was.
You know that was interesting because even if we split the vote, you got to understand how many Republicans are in the county.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, even if they split the vote, he still would not win.
Yeah. But
I think that though had an impact on people not voting for Nancy, who might have otherwise done so. They were afraid of that.
That may be. But then we have many other races. We had county council races.
Did anybody but the Democrats win?
No.
Okay.
4 at-large Democrats. And what's interesting, the composition now of the gender composition of the county council is going to be 8 men and 1 woman. The school board, which was, there were 3 positions up for the school board, was going to be all women, 7 women on the school board. So that's interesting in this time of change, especially at the national level.
Well, there's a newbie in the school board, Carla Silvestre. She overcame a post-endorsement for her opponent.
Right.
Never run for anything. And now she's a member of the school board. What was it? How did she win?
Well, I think she's well known in the county, and the other candidate was. I think there was name recognition needed for both, and she came out ahead. She was endorsed by the teachers' DAPL ballot and so on. There's another candidate who ran unopposed in the 4th district. Oh my goodness.
Navarro.
No.
Judy Daca or
no. Judy Daca and Pat O'Neill won.
Right.
And
well, anyway, but we got the county executive, and we got also the governor's race too.
The governor's race.
So the governor's race, that was Montgomery County. If you're running against a Republican, a Democrat really needs to carry Montgomery County. What is it by 6? At least 60% of the vote,
absolutely.
Or 65%. Didn't happen here. Montgomery County came out in large numbers for Hogan.
That's a phenomenon that he has mastered for this first time since 1954 that a Republican candidate has won re-election, has been
I thought
successful.
It was 1854. It's 1954?
1954, that's right. So,
but it was fairly close, right?
Oh, not
Mayor?
really.
No?
It was close enough.
For governor?
It was a surprise.
For
it was a
governor,
surprise
right.
that Ben jealous did as
It was
well
like
as he did do.
52% to 43%.
No, I think it was a little more than 43. I think it was like 48.
Okay.
48%.
So as you're saying close, here in Montgomery County, he got, what, 56%, I think. Jealous did 44, something around
Something
there.
around there,
Yep.
yeah.
And you've got to have, because the Democrats are Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Baltimore City, and then dispersed
Right.
in
And
some
then
other
we
places,
had,
but-
don't forget, we had congressional races. District 6, David Trone, the Total Wine
over,
owner,
yeah.
won in District 6. Jamie Raskin, and his campaign, I saw very little information, but he won overwhelmingly in Congressional District number 8. And of course, Ben Cardin was reelected as
Well,
our
John
senator.
Sarbanes has the upper Montgomery, upper
Right.
northeast Montgomery. But just yesterday as well, the Supreme Court said, or the federal court, I should say, the 4th District said, redistricting for the 2020, that the gerrymandering of that district.
No, that's Congressional District 6, the Trone one.
The Trone one is the
one that has to
that's
be
okay.
gerrymandered,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's going to be moved.
Oh,
all of them are
okay,
gonna move
okay, they
over.
require
Yeah.
us to change
It's
it.
not Sarbanes. So
That's correct.
Good.
And we don't have enough time to discuss the national
No.
issues that occurred.
We have only about 40 seconds left.
The change of Congress in the House of Representatives, I think, is going to be interesting, to say the least. And
Well-
what are they going to? Are the politicians going to be able to act grown up? That's a very serious question, as opposed to all the partisanship that has
Look what
been going
happened
on.
just now.
10 seconds.
Look what just happened just now. He fired the Attorney General.
Right.
He put his boy in there. And on top of that,
You're talking about Donald Trump, right?
I didn't want to call his name, but yeah. But you got to understand, he is a little nervous about what's going to happen
Yeah,
because of the House.
final word. You got 3 words.
I just say I hope that people continue to vote. Two state issues were passed.
Okay.
2 questions.
Okay, we'll get back to that next time you come
okay.
out. Hey, thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Amy, welcome back.
Thank you.
You know,
for having me.
I don't really want to start hearing the Christmas and the other holiday songs, but they keep coming up earlier. I'm looking at some of the stores and shopping centers, and already the holiday stuff
Decorations
is out.
are up, right?
And while it brings joy, I'm traditionalist. Thanksgiving is the time you bring all that out, but obviously I'm not into the marketing side. But just as we're bringing out this joy, and we get close to the holidays, it's a time of sadness and loneliness, isn't it, for too many in our community?
Yes, it is. The holidays are a joyful time, like you mentioned, but often for people, especially the most vulnerable in our community, it is a stressful time. It can be stressful for all of us, let's be honest, but for especially those that are vulnerable in our community, people who are seniors, people who are don't have any other family or friends, or sometimes those with chronic mental illness or disabilities, it can be a struggle. And so a time of stress. And at EveryMind, our focus is always mental wellness, right? So there's a component that has to do with mental illness, but mental wellness is something we all have and need to take care of.
The more mentally well we are, the less illness that we're going to face. Is that, sort of prevention?
Yeah,
how we can-
there are, in terms of mental wellness, there's so much to it, and that's, having less stress, of course, diet and exercise and all that.
It's all related.
What can
employment.
EveryMind do to help that with people?
So we have lots of programs that we serve all ages, youth, families, veterans, people with disabilities and mental illness, and seniors specifically. And
Let's talk about the seniors.
Sure, yeah.
especially.
So I run a program which is called Friendly Visitor, and also Representative Payee. Friendly Visitor specifically, we train volunteers, and we match those volunteers to go out and visit seniors in our community who are lonely and socially isolated. Many of them are homebound, not all are. And the volunteers come in, visit with them about once a week for about an hour, and really just spend time with them. It's not a program that's focused on grocery shopping or running errands for them. It's really person-to-person contact, building a relationship, and friendship.
How does someone, if I wanted to have a friendly visitor, How does one access that?
So you could just contact EveryMind, or go to our website, and there's a referral form on the website. They could also just forward you to give a call and forward you to us, and we would go out, meet the person who's interested in having a friendly visitor, and then start looking for someone to go out and visit them who's a good fit in terms of.
Can a relative or a friend refer
Sure.
someone to get a friendly visitor?
Sure, yes. And we will also take people who maybe are living with family, so maybe they're not completely isolated, but maybe those family members who are caregivers are often at work or, with their own young children, and so they spend a lot of time alone.
Okay.
And for many of our clients, their friendly visitor volunteer might be the only social contact face-to-face that they see in a week.
Do
So
these develop into long-term friendships, do you see?
they do, yeah. We've had people who have been seeing and visiting their friend for 10, 15 years. Wow. Yeah, and so we really, really try to look at the personalities and shared interests and all that to try to create that
how
good
do you
match.
monitor something like that? Because, I can see how, people.
Make sure people don't take advantage.
Yeah.
So we, all our volunteers.
We've got a little over a minute left.
Okay, sure. All our volunteers, we stay in constant communication with them. They report their visits on a monthly basis, and when things are not working out, we always look for another match for that person if they want it. And so it's really a great program that really focuses on creating that friendship and companionship and reducing that social
Let's talk about the
isolation.
other part, the pay.
Rep payee?
Yeah, again, a little bit less than a minute. So
Sure. So representative payee, what we do is if there's a person who needs assistance managing their federal benefits, so for example, Social Security, because of their disability, then we can also find a volunteer. That is a little bit more of an extensive process, but incredibly important because these people may be facing eviction, running out of money for food on a monthly basis if they don't have help managing their finances. And so the volunteers are incredibly essential in helping them kind of get by day to day.
Just like I did with Fred, final word, we just got a couple seconds left. Are we doing well? We're gaining on it? People less lonely, people getting there.
Well, yeah, and if you have neighbors who live alone, reach out, say hello, invite them over, and if volunteering is another great way to reduce loneliness and isolation. So if you're interested in doing that, volunteering is great.
Great last word, thank you. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Stuart, welcome back.
Thank you, Don.
November Beacon, so many topics, but I think what inquiring minds want to know is what's your take on marijuana, Maryland, and your readership?
Well, it was a big issue in the legislature for a number of years. They brought it up and it was voted down, and they brought it up again. A lot of groups were against it, thinking this is not good for older adults. But it finally passed, and it's been 5 years before they actually led to them being in these stores. But now the floodgates are open, and there are 69 dispensaries in Maryland, with another 40 on the books set to open after the first of the year.
Which is that my sister lives in Denver. She claims there are 69 on every block now. So it just grows and grows, right?
Yes, everywhere. So the question is this really helpful for people? And the answer is we don't know. There is really not any good studies that are definitive that say it works in a lot of ways. There are several places where the FDA has approved it for use in epilepsy, in people who have chemo and have nausea problems.
Right.
There are definitely things that people know it's good for. It's good for perhaps appetite problems for HIV patients. So there are things that have been approved for. But in terms
For
of the
anxiety?
general,
Anxiety?
well, see, there are two different thoughts on that too. Some say it modifies anxiety. Some say it makes it worse.
Right.
And it depends on how much you take and what kinds of things you take. It's not very
And how many bags
scientific.
of,
Depends on the
potato
person, too.
chips are around?
Depends on the person, too.
It depends on the person. That's the other problem. For me, that's the main problem. I've asked all these people when we did the story. So they're telling us this is how much it costs per ounce or whatever.
Right.
And I said, well, how many doses is that compared to a pain reliever? And they say, oh, we can't tell you. It depends on how much. It can last you anywhere from 3 days to 30 days. And I say, You go to a senior and you say, okay, put away your pills and take this instead. It'll last you 3 days to 30 days and cost just as much. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
How does
So-
one?
doesn't.
You said 69 dispensaries
So far.
How does
The state.
how does one?
There's a commission. The Medical Cannabis Commission determines who gets the license. There's a big issue with that too.
No,
you
no,
may
no.
realize.
I mean, how? If I want to go buy some.
Oh, they're on the street. I mean, you just look them up.
So
Look
if I'm
vegan, I mean-
18 and don't have a doctor's prescription.
Oh no, you need to have a doctor's.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
The first thing you do is you need to have a doctor certify that you have one of the conditions that justifies your having medical
Gotcha.
marijuana. It's not just available for general use.
And in the states, that was always the start. And
Right.
then
It goes
later
from
on,
there,
the
right. It
legislature
goes
would
from there.
pass some years
Right.
later
Right.
that it's fine. Everybody just
And it's
lighten
also a
up.
question: how hard is it to get one of these doctor certifications? I mean, do you have intractable pain? Do you have
Right.
anxiety? Do you have PTSD? And a lot of different conditions that can justify. So when you walk into one of these stores, I was there taking pictures, and I heard people walking in, and they said, "Oh, you need to get certified first." I said, "Well, how do I do that?" Well, right around the corner, there's the doctor. Go give him this card. You'll pay X, and you'll be right back. And it's some of them have the doctors right there on the premises. So I mean, it's
You
What's
know-
interesting too is not we shouldn't forget that marijuana is illegal under federal law.
Federal law.
And that's one of the reasons we don't have all the studies that say that whether it's good or not. That's
Right.
I have to admit that part because federal law makes it hard for even NIH researchers
Sure.
to study it.
Interesting.
So it hasn't been studied as much as it should be, but I think now it will be more studied because
I'm
it's more out
sorry.
there.
I have a problem with, you go to a dispensary and say, oh, you need a doctor's. You can go around the corner and give. I'm leery of that. I really am. It's just like some of the athletes, they had to get physicals, and the team will refer you to a certain doctor.
Real quick.
I don't. I have a problem.
But let me ask you
with
this.
that.
Let me ask you this for Henry and to come in with Stuart. Is that many folks who are very huge proponents of marijuana are athletes who retired athletes and see this as a way that they're banged up,
They're chronic pain.
lifelong
Pain,
chronic
right.
pain.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
chronic
how does this come in? Is this
Yeah.
something that is? I mean, it seems like for seniors this is a huge
A lot of
opportunity.
doctors say that it may be helpful for chronic pain, and they want to let their patients decide that.
Right.
So they'll write them they say, try it out. I mean, doctors really don't know what works, and everybody
Right.
is different, like
Exactly,
you say. So try it out. And also they're saying that opioids have become so difficult, and there's so much
Sure.
addiction and death from that the doctors are saying, I'm pulling back from opioids. I'm not going to prescribe you that.
Which they
Try the
should.
marijuana and see if it works for you. So it's
Which
an
they
alternative, which
should.
is less addictive.
77,000
Right.
deaths. Yeah.
Well, let's turn real
So,
quick. Get 45 seconds to get to
So
the
let me
other
just go
issues.
well, no, just cons. Okay, just so you should know that marijuana increases the risk of car accidents. It increases the risk of falling for older adults. It can intervene with your medications. So you really need to have your own doctor take a look at it or
Exactly.
try it out and work with your doctor to see if this is going to work for you.
Exactly.
You don't want to take any risks, I think, on this.
Real quick, I want to get on the other issue, other things, parts of the beacon. We
Osteoporosis
got
medication, the
25
bisphosphonate,
seconds.
they say it's good for people with osteoporosis for sure. A big study found they're even good for people with the very earliest signs of bone loss. So women who hit
Okay,
65.
osteoporosis. Next story.
Next story. Cayenne pepper can put out a terrible blood cut that you can't get to stop. It hurts like the devil, but dip it in the cayenne pepper and it'll stop the bleeding in 30 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. And then how to find a good car salesperson. Did I mention that before?
Go ahead, quick.
You have the right to pick your own
Okay.
car salesperson. If you don't like them on the lot, ask the sales manager
And-
for a replacement.
And just like people have the right to turn off other stations, other networks, in order to watch us. And that's what we want you to do. All right. Thanks, Stuart. Appreciate that. Henry, more seniors in the workforce. Now, high on marijuana or not, we won't get into that, chronic pain or not. But seniors in the workforce, we're seeing more and more. You go to
Yes.
Florida, you see, in lots of places.
You don't have to really go to Florida.
have to go to Florida.
Yeah.
It's all over. And it's something that hasn't just started. Since in the 90s, that's when employers realized that they have a commodity, a valued commodity is some of the older workers. And let me define workforce. Workforce is people that are working or seeking work. So old people,
Older people, older,
or
Seniors.
seniors,
Seniors.
mature
can range
individuals.
from 55 and older,
Right.
or 65 older, depending on the categories that you're looking at. Now, let me just tell you, when I was an employer for Giant Food,
Right.
we looked at people that will help us with customer service, who help us to have the maturity enough to be reliable, be able to handle the work.
Sure.
Most of the people that we hired are, in those days, were from 45 on that we could use
Yeah.
for called
Mature.
courtesy clerks, cashiers.
Sure.
not necessarily stock clerks.
Those who interact with the public. People who
Interact
want
with
to
the
know how
public,
to
exactly,
talk and how to act.
exactly. And as I said again, this didn't just start, now, but back in the 90s it started. Now,
Unemployment rate now is 3.5%. The president's really cracking down on immigration, which has been a valve coming in to release some of these pressures on employment. The only place really now to turn to are retired workers, older workers, to bring them back to the workplace. Are we seeing that?
Well, yes and no. In certain industries, you can't really rely necessarily on the senior citizen. Look at the crab industry. They relied heavily on some key skilled workers that used to migrate in.
From Mexico.
Yeah,
I was their lawyer.
And then go back.
Yeah.
That's a problem now.
Right.
But you get the seniors who are mature enough, reliable enough,
Right.
skilled enough to work in retail, work
Right.
in the office, administration, what have you. And we were just talking about, are they tech savvy? In most of the office work and programs, yes.
Right.
And some are really high tech. But let me just say this, that if you look at 2010,
Right.
we had 16% increase.
Okay.
You
Going
rose
up?
to 16%,
Okay.
as opposed to in 2005 it was only 14%.
I mean, as a percentage of the entire workforce, 16% of the workforce were seniors.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, but
Gone up.
they're saying that in the decade of 2014 to 2024,
Right.
that it's going to increase to 55%.
I think the two reasons for this increase, one is, of course, that people need the money. They're finding that they're living longer than they expected and they're not earning enough money to live on and they need to keep
Right.
working. And the other is that they just find retirement boring. They want to keep
Right.
active. They want to keep
Well, that's
busy
it.
and doing
That's
that.
it.
And
You'd be
I've-
surprised.
And I've got just example. I'm quote retired, but I've continued to work, and
Right.
I do recreation department, supervise men's softball leagues and basketball leagues. It's part time, but it's something I enjoy, and there's all kinds of different facets.
I was just talking to a friend of mine,
Good.
and he was talking about his 90-year-old uncle. He said, I got to call him. He works at Walmart as a greeter, and he said he loves the job, comes on time and everything else. Now, just to give you an idea, we were talking back in the green room, whatever, blue room, or whatever you call it, and you were saying that a lot of people are, you go into the pharmacies and you see, a lot of
Right.
seniors. CVS today has 25% of their workforce that are seniors.
Wow. Sure.
And they attribute that to, as I said again, mature, they
me-
know how to deal with people.
Let me ask this. Is this something, Amy, fighting loneliness coming in and workforce? Because you're around. I mean, and what you're talking about are people who
Around
are,
people.
you're around, you're interacting and all that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
Is this?
Yeah, and we see for our volunteers specifically who come and train and want to give back, maybe they're retired accountants or lawyers, or
Right.
really doesn't have to be specifically anything like that, but that they are maybe also still working part-time or doing
Right.
contract work or consulting, and also really looking to fill their spare time with volunteer work.
Something that's fulfilling.
Right.
Yeah, very, very much so.
And sometimes doing something different than what they did
Oh, yeah.
in their
Right.
career
Oh, yeah.
path. So if they worked in the schools with children, maybe now they want to work with the senior
30,
population.
30 seconds left,
So-
Henry. We find the same thing that a lot of these seniors are going into areas like Fred and
They
and talk
can't,
about
they can't
other
sit
areas.
around. They can't sit
Yeah.
around.
Right.
They can't just say, I'm going to Florida, retire, I'm going to Disney World, take my grandchild. That's only, what are you going to do after a year?
Just waiting to die.
You know?
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Choose to live.
Yeah,
choose to
to
stay
live.
active.
And be-
choose to be engaged. That's you, Henry Hailstock, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for all of you. Thank you for coming today. It's been a great show. And thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores. Please join us next week at this very same time.